All right, let's jump right in. Think about this for a second. How do you translate a sacred text for a culture that doesn't really read but listens? A culture where stories are all about performance and memory, not black and white on a page. Today, we're going to unpack the surprisingly tricky and super high stakes world of translating scripture for oral cultures.
So it really all starts with a story. A brand new Bible translation gets published and sent out. And, technically, it was perfect. The words were all correct. But something was just wrong. And this quote says it all. For the people it was made for, it just felt off. The phrasing was awkward, the flow was weird, it just didn't sound like them. And the fallout from this was huge. After a pretty serious review, they pulled the entire project. We're not talking about a typo here. This was a massive failure. It just goes to show you how incredibly important it is to get this stuff right. The stakes are just about as high as they get.
Which, of course, brings us to the big question for today. For these communities who are hearing these scriptures in their own language for the very first time and hearing them spoken aloud, how do you make sure that translation is not just accurate, but that it feels natural, that it feels true to who they are? How do you avoid a total disaster like the one they just talked about?
Well, the core of the problem, as it turns out, is this fundamental mismatch. For decades, the way people checked translations was designed for books, for written words. And trying to apply those same rules to oral cultures, it doesn't work. For the longest time, this was the gold standard. It's an acronym, CANA. It meant the translation had to be clear, accurate, natural, and, this is the big one, approved by some highly trained external consultant. It's a really rigorous system that honestly worked pretty well for written translations.
Okay, so this is where you can really see the problem. The text-based approach, it's all about written transcripts, judged by an expert from the outside, and it's totally focused on the final product. But for oral cultures, it's all about the performance, the storytelling, it's judged by the community, and the focus is on the process of telling the story. I mean, they're two completely different worlds. So here's the absolute crucial point. If you try to check an oral translation by writing it all down first, you've already missed the entire point. You're trying to cram this living, breathing, performance-based thing into a neat little text-based box. It's kind of like trying to judge a beautiful piece of music by just reading the sheet music instead of actually listening to it. You completely strip away the soul of it.
This is where things had to change. A really radical shift in thinking was needed. Instead of trying to patch up the old text-based system, people realized they needed a whole new philosophy, one built from the ground up for oral communities. And this new idea, it's a total game changer. Seriously, what if quality wasn't this final exam graded by a stranger? What if, instead, quality was woven into the very fabric of the process, right from day one, owned and driven by the community itself? So, this new way of thinking is built on four main pillars. First, it's community-focused. It all starts with what they need. Second, it's a conversation. It's dialogical. And third, and this one is huge, it's all about local ownership, where local churches raise up their own translators. And finally, quality is process integrated. It's part of every single step along the way.
Okay, so how does this actually work? What does it look like? This system is called the Disciple-Making Oral Bible Strategy, or DOBS for short, and the engine that makes it all run is this really clever two-cycle process that basically builds quality right into the workflow. Let's break it down. So the first cycle is all about comprehension. Before anyone even thinks about translating a single word, the community has to dive deep into the original scripture. It starts with visualization. That's the head, just understanding the facts. Then comes interiorization, the heart, empathizing with the emotions. And it ends with actualization, the hands, thinking about how to apply it. Now, this is way more than just a Bible study. By engaging the head, the heart, and the hands, the community gets this really deep, holistic grasp of the scripture's meaning, its feeling, and its challenge. And only when that foundation is rock solid can they even think about moving on. Then you get to the second cycle, the cycle of correction. This is where the actual translation happens, but it's checked every step of the way by the community. First, the translators check each other's oral retellings. Then it goes out to bilingual church leaders for a community check. And finally, the top leaders give the last stamp of approval. And the guiding principle through all of this, the ultimate test, is this idea of mirroring. The question is always, does our new oral translation faithfully reflect the message, the meaning, and the feeling of the original scripture, just as we came to understand it through that whole head-heart-hand process?
So, okay, we've seen the problem. We've seen this really detailed solution. But why? Why does this all matter so much? What's the real end goal here?
You see, the real measure of success isn't some perfect audio file or a thumbs up from an outside expert. I mean, those are nice, but they're just byproducts. The real goal is something way deeper, something much more transformational.
And here it is, right here in this quote. The ultimate purpose is only fulfilled when people have a real encounter with the message and when these vibrant, growing communities of faith are born. The translation isn't the end goal, it's the tool that makes the real goal possible.
And that kind of leaves us with one last thought to chew on. In our world today, right, with AI that can translate anything in a split second, this very human, very community-focused process gives us a powerful lesson. It makes you stop and ask, how do we make sure that the true purpose and the real heart of any important message gets preserved, and not just the literal words on the page?